Liam sat in the dimly lit corner of his small apartment, staring at the one-way ticket on his desk. A ticket to nowhere, or at least that's what it felt like. In exactly 24 hours, the world would forget his name. He wasn't looking for pity. He wasn't looking for help. He was looking for a reason, just one reason to stay. And that's when he saw it. A notification blinked on his screen. Live Q&A with Keanu Reeves and Elon Musk. Fan questions open now. His hands trembled as he typed, knowing these might be the last words he would ever say to the world. 5 questions. That's all he had, 5 questions to decide whether he would stay or disappear forever. The theater was packed, buzzing with excitement. Fans cheered as Keanu Reeves walked onto the stage, his signature humility shining through a small smile. Elon Musk followed, waving briefly before taking his seat. Liam, sitting in the second row, could feel the weight of the moment crushing him. His fingers clutched the printed confirmation. A miracle. Out of thousands of fans, he had been chosen to ask 5 questions. 5 questions that would determine his fate. "All right," the host's voice boomed. "Our first fan question comes from Liam." The crowd erupted in cheers as a spotlight landed on him. His throat felt dry, but he managed to force out the first question. Question number 1. Keanu, if you could live in any of your movie universes, which one would it be and why? The audience laughed, and Keanu smirked. "I'd love to say The Matrix, but honestly, probably John Wick. At least then, I'd have a dog." The crowd roared with laughter. Liam smiled, but deep inside the weight of his decision hadn't lifted. Question number 2. Elon, if you had to live on Mars tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd take with you? Elon chuckled. "Probably my Wi-Fi router. Gotta make sure Twitter still works up there." The audience laughed again, the energy still lighthearted. Liam played along, but his heart pounded. 3 more questions. Would they change anything? Or would they just confirm what he already knew, that life was just a series of empty moments? He swallowed hard and prepared for the real questions. Liam took a shaky breath, gripping the microphone a little tighter. The first 2 questions had been fun, easy. But now he was stepping into dangerous territory. He forced himself to speak. Question number 3. Keanu, you've played so many roles where your character loses everything. Have you ever lost something so painful that you thought you'd never recover? The crowd fell silent. Keanu's expression changed instantly. The playful glint in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something deeper, darker. He exhaled, nodding slowly, as if he already knew this conversation was coming. Then he spoke. "Yes?" His voice was lower now, almost a whisper. "I lost my best friend when I was young. Then I lost the love of my life. And then I lost my daughter before she even had a chance to live." A heavy silence swallowed the room. Liam's grip on the microphone tightened. He knew about Keanu's tragic past, but hearing it in his own voice felt different. Keanu glanced down for a moment, collecting himself. Then he looked straight at Liam. Pain doesn't disappear. It carves itself into you. But over time, you learn that grief is just love that has nowhere to go. And that love, it never dies. Liam swallowed the lump in his throat. His chest tightened. He wasn't expecting that answer. The host, sensing the weight of the moment, cleared his throat. Wow, that was powerful. "All right, Liam, you have 2 more questions." Liam's heart pounded. The 4th question was the one he had feared the most, the one that wasn't just for them, but for himself. He raised the microphone again. His voice wavered, but he forced the words out. Question number 4. Have you ever felt like giving up? Like nothing in life makes sense anymore? The room went dead silent. Keanu and Elon exchanged glances. The crowd, previously buzzing with laughter, sat frozen. This was no longer just a Q&A. This was a cry for help. Elon was the first to speak. His usual sharp wit was gone. His voice was raw, real. Yes, I have. A gasp rippled through the audience. This was the billionaire, the tech genius, the man who seemed unstoppable. And yet, there was a time when Tesla was on the edge of bankruptcy. SpaceX had failed 3 times. I had lost my first child. And I thought, maybe I just wasn't meant to do this. Liam stared at him, breathless. But here's the thing, Elon continued. I asked myself, if I give up now, what happens next? Does the world change for the better because I stopped? So I took one more step, and then another, and that's the only reason I'm here today. The air in the room was thick with emotion. People shifted in their seats. Some wiped their eyes. Then Keanu spoke. I've been there too, Liam, more times than I can count. But you know what I realized? Life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about finding something worth living for, even when it hurts. Liam felt a shiver run through his entire body. His fingers trembled. Keanu leaned forward, eyes locked on Liam's. Are you looking for a reason to stay? Liam's breath caught in his throat. His entire body froze. He hadn't told anyone. He hadn't even hinted at it. And yet, Keanu knew. The weight of the moment crushed him, pressing against his ribs, his lungs. He felt like the walls were closing in, like the entire world was watching his every move. Because they were. He had one last question, one last chance. He exhaled, knowing this was it, and then he asked the question that would change everything. Question number 5. If you had only 24 hours to live, what would you do? Keanu didn't blink, didn't hesitate. I'd make sure to tell the people I love how much they mean to me, and I'd remind someone who's struggling that they matter. Elon nodded, his voice softer than before. I'd take one last step toward the future, because even if I'm gone, my actions can still inspire others. Liam's heart stopped, because for the first time in years, something inside him shifted. Hope, a spark, small but undeniable, ignited in the darkness. The Q&A ended. The crowd erupted into applause. The host thanked the guests. People stood, clapping, cheering. The moment had passed for everyone, but not for Liam. He sat frozen, staring at the floor, gripping the microphone as if it were the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. And then, something unexpected happened. Keanu stepped off the stage. The audience, confused, watched as he walked straight toward the crowd, straight toward Liam. Without a word, he hugged him. Not a short, polite hug. A real one? A human one? And then he whispered 6 words into Liam's ear. Hey, we need you here. Liam's chest caved. His entire world collapsed and rebuilt itself in a single moment. And for the first time in a long, long time, he believed it. Liam walked out of the event in a daze. The noise of the crowd, the flashing cameras, the voices blending into an unrecognizable hum. It all felt distant, like a dream he wasn't fully awake from. But one thing echoed in his mind. Hey, we need you here. He touched his chest where Keanu's hug still lingered, as if it had left an imprint beneath his skin. For the first time in years, he wasn't invisible. He mattered, but the war inside him wasn't over. As he stepped outside into the cold night air, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the one-way train ticket he had bought days ago. The plan had been simple. Go to a place where no one would find him, where no one would care, and then disappear. But now? Now, the weight of that decision pressed against him like a stone in his hands. He stood on the sidewalk, staring at the ticket, Keanu's words playing over and over in his head. Are you looking for a reason to stay? Life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about finding something worth living for, even when it hurts. Something inside him cracked. He wasn't sure what it was. Fear? Doubt? The version of himself that was ready to give up? And then, as if the universe itself had stepped in, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Liam frowned, hesitating before opening it. It was just 6 words. Keep moving forward. Elon Musk. His breath hitched. His pulse raced. Then another buzz, another message. You are loved, Keanu Reeves. Liam's fingers shook as he read the words. His legs felt weak. They knew exactly what he had been planning, and instead of turning away, instead of ignoring the silent struggle, they had reached out, pulled him back from the edge. Tears welled in his eyes. His vision blurred, and before he even knew what he was doing, he did something he never thought he would. He took the ticket and tore it in half. He chose to stay. Liam sat at his desk, staring at the blank screen in front of him. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. The world had changed in the past year, or maybe he had. He had gotten help, therapy, support, new dreams. He had found his purpose, writing, sharing stories of hope for people like him, people who felt lost, people who were waiting for a sign to stay. And tonight he was about to send the most important message of his life. He took a deep breath and began to type. 1 year ago, I sat in a theater ready to ask 5 questions. What no one knew was that I wasn't just asking for answers. I was asking for a reason to live. I had a plan to leave this world, but then you both spoke. You shared your pain. You didn't pretend to be untouchable. You showed me that even the strongest people have been where I was. And most importantly, you told me that I matter. That night I made a decision. I tore up my ticket. I chose to stay. Now, 1 year later, I want you to know I am still here. And because of you, I have helped others stay too. Thank you. You saved my life. Liam hit publish and closed his eyes. He didn't expect much. Maybe a few likes, a few kind comments, but what happened next, he could have never predicted. The letter went viral. Within hours, thousands of people shared their own struggles, their own stories of finding light in the darkness. Within days, Keanu Reeves himself responded, Liam, your story is why we keep going. Never forget, there is always someone who needs you here. Then Elon Musk retweeted it with a simple, powerful message. Keep moving forward. Always. And just like that, Liam's words, his pain, his journey, his decision to stay, became a beacon of hope for millions. He had gone from searching for a reason to live to becoming a reason for others to stay. Liam was still processing the overwhelming response to his letter when his email pinged with a new message. Subject, an invitation from Keanu and Elon. His breath caught. His hands trembled as he clicked it open. Dear Liam, your story has moved us beyond words. You proved that one conversation can change a life, and now your story is changing lives too. We'd love for you to join us as a guest at our next live event, not just as a fan, but as someone with a message the world needs to hear. People need your story, Liam. Let us know if you're ready. With respect, Keanu and Elon Liam stared at the screen, his heart pounding. Him? On stage? Speaking in front of thousands? The very thought made his stomach twist in knots. He had spent most of his life feeling invisible, unheard. And now, 2 of the most influential people in the world were giving him a voice. He closed his laptop, breathing heavily. His first instinct was to say no. He wasn't a public speaker. He wasn't famous. Who was he to inspire anyone? Then he looked at the thousands of comments on his letter. I was ready to give up, but your story gave me hope. I needed to hear this today. Thank you, Liam. Because of you, I'm still here. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. His heart pounded. And then he replied, I'll be there. A month later, Liam found himself backstage at a massive auditorium, staring at the glowing lights of the crowd, the same stage where he had once sat as just another fan. Now had his name on the speaker lineup. A part of him still didn't believe it. He had spent weeks preparing, rehearsing, trying to make sure he didn't fail in front of thousands. But now that he was here, the fear crept in. What if I freeze? What if I mess this up? What if I don't belong here? A warm hand landed on his shoulder. Liam turned to see Keanu Reeves, standing beside him, eyes kind, steady. "Hey," Keanu said softly. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real." Liam swallowed hard. Then another voice chimed in. "Fear is just a test," Elon Musk added, stepping forward. "And you've already passed the hardest one." Liam let out a shaky breath. The host's voice boomed through the speakers. "And now we have a special guest. You may remember him from our last Q&A. But today, he's here not as a fan, but as someone with a message that might just change your life. Please welcome Liam Evans." Thunderous applause filled the arena. Liam stepped forward. The blinding lights hit his face. Thousands of eyes were on him. A year ago, he had been ready to leave this world. Today, he was standing in front of thousands, proving that even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest mornings. He took a deep breath, and he began to speak. Liam's speech wasn't perfect. He stumbled over his words a few times. His voice cracked once or twice. But it was real. It was raw. And it was his. "A year ago, I thought my story was over. But then, two people took a moment to remind me that I mattered, that I was needed. And because of that, I'm still here." I know there are people in this room, people watching from home, who feel the way I did. If that's you, listen to me. You matter. You are needed. And I promise you, there is light ahead, even if you can't see it yet. The audience was silent, but not because they weren't listening, because they were hanging on to every single word. When he finished, the applause was deafening. Keanu and Elon both stood, clapping with the crowd. And for the first time in his life, Liam felt seen, not as a fan, not as a lost soul, but as someone who had survived and was now helping others do the same. Liam's speech went viral overnight. News channels covered it. Social media exploded with the hashtag number #YouAreNeeded. Keanu and Elon both posted about it. Celebrities, mental health organizations, and millions of people around the world shared his message. And then, something even more incredible happened. An email flooded his inbox. Not just one, but thousands. Messages from people who had been on the edge, who had been searching for a reason to stay. And because of Liam's story, they did. His inbox was filled with words like, "Your speech saved me. I needed to hear that today. Because of you, I chose to live." And that's when Liam finally understood. The pain he had survived wasn't just his own. It was meant to be shared, to help others survive too. Liam didn't stop there. He started a nonprofit dedicated to mental health awareness, giving people a place to reach out, to be heard. He wrote a book about his journey. It became a bestseller. He was invited to speak at more events, schools, universities, and every time he ended with the same words Keanu had once whispered to him. "Hey, we need you here." And somewhere in the world, someone who was about to give up chose to stay. Because of one moment, because of one conversation, because of 5 questions. That changed a life. And the ripple effect? It never stopped. It had been 2 years since that night, the night everything changed. Liam's nonprofit, You Are Needed, had grown beyond anything he imagined. It had provided mental health resources to thousands, funded crisis hotlines, and even partnered with schools to introduce mental wellness programs. His book, 5 Questions That Saved My Life had become a global bestseller, with people all over the world sharing how it had helped them find hope. And now, he stood backstage at another event, heart-pounding just like before. This time, though, it wasn't fear keeping him on edge. It was gratitude, because tonight he wasn't just a guest speaker. Tonight he was about to reunite with the 2 men who had saved his life. A soft chuckle came from behind him. "Didn't think we'd be back here again, huh?" Liam turned. Keanu Reeves and Elon Musk stood there, both smiling. Liam let out a breathless laugh. I don't even know what to say." Keanu smirked. "How about thank you?" Liam grinned. "I think I owe you more than that." Elon patted him on the back. "You don't owe us anything. You did this. You made the choice to stay, and now look at you." Keanu nodded, his eyes warm. "You're the one saving lives now, Liam." Liam swallowed hard, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He had dreamt of this moment, but nothing could prepare him for the feeling of standing between the 2 men who had unknowingly pulled him back from the brink, not just as a fan, but as an equal, as someone who had turned his pain into purpose, as someone who had found his own light and was now passing it on to others. The host's voice echoed through the speakers. "And now let's welcome back a man whose story has touched millions, Liam Evans." The crowd erupted into applause as Liam stepped onto the stage, Keanu and Elon walking beside him. But this time he wasn't nervous. This time he knew he belonged here. He took a deep breath, gazed out at the thousands of faces, and spoke the words that had defined his journey. 2 years ago, I was ready to give up. I thought my story was over. But then I asked 5 questions that changed my life. And now I want to ask you those same 5 questions, because maybe, just maybe, they'll change yours too. The audience fell completely silent. Liam looked out at the sea of faces, knowing that somewhere in this crowd, someone needed to hear this. Someone was where he once was. And if he could save just one more life tonight, then his journey had been worth it. He took a deep breath and spoke his final words. "Hey, we need you here." And somewhere in the audience, unseen but deeply felt, a life was saved. The speech became one of the most watched videos in history. The phrase, "We need you," here turned into a global movement, appearing on shirts, billboards, and handwritten notes tucked into books, lockers, and hospital rooms. It reached places Liam had never imagined. A soldier stationed overseas heard it and held on a little longer. A struggling teenager saw it scribbled on a bathroom mirror and decided to ask for help. A mother who had lost everything found the strength to rebuild. The ripple effect never stopped, and all of it, every saved life, every moment of hope, every single person who chose to stay, traced back to one fan asking 5 questions in a room full of strangers. One moment, one conversation, one decision. That changed the world. And as Liam stood backstage watching the crowd, he knew this was just the beginning, because hope never dies. It only spreads. As the months passed, the We Need You Here movement took on a life of its own. Liam found himself speaking at more events, visiting schools, and even consulting with mental health professionals on new initiatives to help those in crisis. But one day, he received an unexpected call. Keanu Reeves. "Liam, I've been thinking, we did something incredible that night, but what if we could do more? What if we could create something permanent?" Liam's heart pounded. "Permanent? What do you mean?" Keanu's voice was thoughtful. "A place, a real place, a center where people can come when they're lost, a safe space for those who feel like they have nowhere to turn." Liam's breath caught. A physical space, a real-life sanctuary, something bigger than just a movement online. Keanu continued, "And I don't want to do it alone. You, me, and Elon. What do you think? Liam couldn't even speak for a moment. Elon Musk, Keanu Reeves, and him, building something that could save millions. A single tear slipped down his cheek as he whispered, I think this is exactly what the world needs. Months of planning, fundraising, and meetings turned into something real. Elon Musk personally funded the creation of the We Need You Here Foundation, a network of mental wellness centers across the world, staffed with professionals, mentors, and survivors who could provide real help to those in crisis. Each center was designed to be a sanctuary, a place to talk, to heal, to feel seen. Keanu spearheaded outreach efforts, using his celebrity platform to spread the message. This is personal, he said in interviews. We're losing too many people because they think they're alone. This place is here to remind them. They're not. Elon used his influence to integrate AI-driven mental health resources, making sure help was available 24/7, even in the most remote places. And Liam? He became the heart of it all, the living proof that hope was possible. At the grand opening of the very first We Need You Here Center, he stood on stage, staring at the massive crowd. So many survivors, so many lives saved. He gripped the microphone. I used to think my life didn't matter. I was wrong. And if you're here today, struggling to believe that your life matters, let me tell you, you are needed. He smiled, his voice steady. And now you have a place to come back to, whenever you forget. The audience erupted in applause, and somewhere in the crowd, another life was saved. Later that evening, as the sun set over the new center, Keanu, Elon, and Liam stood together, taking it all in. Hard to believe, isn't it? Elon murmured. Liam exhaled. Yeah, a few years ago I was just a lost kid asking questions. Now, we built this. Keanu looked at him, eyes filled with quiet pride. You didn't just ask questions, Liam. You changed the world. Liam shook his head. Number we all did. Together. Elon smirked. And it all started with a hug. Liam laughed, remembering the moment Keanu had walked off stage all those years ago to simply hold him. Keanu grinned. Hey, sometimes that's all it takes. The three men stood in silence, watching as people entered the center, people who might have been lost, but now had a reason to stay. Liam's journey had started in darkness, but it led to light. And now that light would never stop spreading, because hope doesn't end. It only grows, and with that, the ripple effect continued. The We Need You Here Foundation grew faster than anyone could have imagined. Within a year, there were centers in 5 countries, places where anyone struggling could walk in, no questions asked, and find help, hope, and a reason to stay. Liam, once a young man drowning in hopelessness, had become the face of a global movement. He wasn't just telling his story anymore, he was living proof that one small moment, one conversation, could change everything. But the biggest moment of all? A phone call from Keanu Reeves. Liam, we've done a lot of good, but there's one last thing we need to do. Liam smiled, already knowing what Keanu was about to say. It's time for another live Q&A. The event was massive, 50,000 people in the audience, millions watching online. This time, Liam wasn't the one asking the questions. He was on stage next to Keanu and Elon, and the moment the host handed him the microphone, he took a deep breath and turned to Keanu. 1 year ago, I asked you 5 questions. Today, I have one more. Keanu smiled. Go for it. Liam's voice was steady. If you could say one thing to someone who feels like they don't matter, what would it be? Keanu didn't hesitate. I'd tell them. You matter more than you know, and you're not alone. Elon nodded. And I'd remind them, the world isn't the same without them in it. Liam looked out at the crowd, at the thousands of faces staring back at him. I almost didn't make it to this moment. but I did. And if I could come back from the darkest place, so can you. The crowd erupted into applause. In that moment, Liam knew, somewhere out there, another life had just been saved. The event went viral. The hashtag number #WeNeedYouHere trended worldwide. Stories started pouring in. I was going to give up, but then I saw Liam's story. I decided to stay. Keanu's words gave me hope when I had none. Elon's message made me realize my future is worth fighting for. The ripple effect never stopped. And Liam? He finally understood. That night, long ago, when he walked into a live Q&A searching for hope, he never imagined that one conversation would change not just his life, but millions. And so, the story that began in pain ended in purpose. Or rather, it never ended at all. Because hope doesn't stop. It spreads. And sometimes it starts with just one question. The end.